All right, welcome to episode number 15 of the Rainier Strength Pod. I am here with Bradoon Gulch. Bradon has an 18-18 raw total, 708-pound squat, 168-pound bench, 161 deadlift. Now that pales in comparison to his 2298 single-ply total. We're talking about an 887-pound squat, a 672 bench, and a 760 deadlift. Bradon is a 6-time national champ and a 12-time USAPL APF record holder who is sponsored currently by Overkill. It's my honor to have him here today. Bradon, how are you, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. Just got home from the gym. Excited to do this.
Awesome, bro. So tell me about what got you into powerlifting, man. You are an absolutely strong cat, national champ.
Yeah. So I guess that started back when right after COVID hit. I was at school for track and field at the D1 level, and I just wasn't really having that much fun with old COVID and everything going on, NCAA. I had a lot of fun going to the gym, working out, getting strong, and going to work. And that was my life for an entire summer. And I came back and I was like, school just ain't for me anymore, man. And I was trying to figure out, I'm not competing in track and field anymore. What the hell am I going to do with my life? And somebody said, dude, you're really fucking strong. Why don't you just compete in that? And so that's what I did. I signed up for my first powerlifting meet. That was I think it was the Eau Claire Open in Wisconsin back in 2022. And it was 2021, I think. And I just been lifting since. I've had a lot of fun doing that. And I just really like competing in it. And that's what got me into it.
Man, so you've only been competing since 2021?
Yes. Competing, yes. But I've been, obviously, in high school, you're going to the gym, doing the bigger, faster, stronger, football coaches have you do, I've always been lifting. I think, my freshman year of high school, which was 2015 into 2016. So, I've been in the gym for like 10 years or so, but competing wise, yeah, only the last 4 years.
Damn, dude, that is crazy. To have those type of accolades only competing for 4.5 years is just nuts, dude. So I'm going to assume that strength is something that came relatively easy to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. The squat and bench definitely came extremely easy. It just made sense. Obviously it's not super easy, but it just kind of made sense, plus the other thing I really helped out is I didn't really get that many injuries. And so, yeah, definitely came by pretty easy.
Damn, dude. And do you have a coach too, or are you doing all your programming by yourself?
Yeah, no. So right now I get coached by Jeremy Hartman at Hartman Performance Training. He's been my coach for a little over a year now. Actually, year and a half now. We've been going at it. My last meet I did by myself with my own programming was the Arnold Pro Series I did, where I took third. And the training going into Equip Nationals in Greenville, South Carolina, that following me, I was stuck, like plateaued everything, getting nasty nicks and injuries. I'm like, dude, I think I'm at that point. I should probably get a serious coach.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm always interested into what gets people into the equipment. So what was your introduction into the equipment?
Yeah. So, my very first introduction to it was after the Wisconsin State meet, where I competed raw and I had an 820 kilo total or 815 kilo total. That happened on a Saturday. That following Monday, I was at a gym and a whole bunch of guys there. They were all congratulating me on hitting my first 200 kilo bench. And they said, why don't we get you in a bench shirt? And I go, what is that? And they got me in it. And it was a Super Cat, but it was way, way, way too small. And they're like, come on, just try touching it to your chest. And I'd probably maybe move the bar about 2 inches because I was trying to bench like raw, how you would normally bench raw, not understanding you're supposed to roll the bar into, I didn't understand any of that. And so it was definitely me trying to figure out all that. And we loaded up, I think it was like 500 pounds. And it was like, try touching it to a tube board. And I'm like, I'll try. I'm trying to bring it down. I'm throwing it down on my stomach because I just don't understand anything. But that was my very first introduction to equipment. And I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then that training block going into junior nationals, I had a nasty back injury. And I got the x-ray done by a chiropractor, and he said that I had a 30-degree compression fracture between two vertebrae. And I'm like, it hurts, but I don't know if it's that bad. But for me to continue my training going into the Vegas Mega Nationals later that same year, I couldn't squat at all without severe pain. And so, same gym, they said, hey, why don't you just throw in a pair of briefs? See what happens. You might be able to squat. You could still train, but this way you could take a lot of strain off your body. And that's what I did. I threw on a very loose pair of Inzer briefs. Everyone knows like the deadlift suit, like the fat boy suit or something like that. Just normal, easy single ply. Those Inzer, the straps were cut off, so it was literally just a pair of briefs. And I squatted in that, and I just kept squatting in that. And I'm like, hey, I really like this. This shit's really fun. And it just slowly kept progressing. Try getting my own gear and knee rests. I just kept progressing in that realm. And I'm like, hey, this is really fun. And I competed in it. I'm like, wow, I'm really good at this.
That's awesome, dude. That's great. And you are also a sponsored athlete, sponsored by Overkill. Now,
Yes.
Overkill for me, man, I've been competing raw for a little bit, man. And as far as like the bench press goes, I've had a lot of different variations in like wrist wraps, right? I had every fucking wrist wrap you can imagine. And when I got the Overkill wrist wraps, those cast wrist wraps, I was like, dude, this is another level of quality. I don't know what innovation went behind this at Overkill, but they make, in my opinion, of course, the best wrist wrap on the market. So tell me how your relationship with Overkill was built.
Yeah. So, the guy who runs Overkill, his name's Rudy. I was able to get in contact with him through a mutual friend at the time. My mutual friend kept saying, yeah, dude, you're really strong. Let me keep, name dropping you to Rudy. And Rudy slowly started like talking with me. I had a big order. I got a squat suit. That was a normal squat suit, it was a standard, and just a gray line bench shirt. That's all I had from him at the time. And I ordered a pair of knee wraps. And slowly, I competed at that APF meet back in Eau Claire, actually. I put up, I don't even remember what my total there was, but I put up a good total there. And then I had the meet 5 weeks later. I did the Wisconsin Pro, and going APF with a monolith and deadlift bar versus USAPL, where you got walking on a power bar, you're pulling on a power bar. With a 5 week turnaround, I was very happy with how I did there. And then I went to the Arnold Pro Series, and I put up a massive total. I did 1,007.5. And Rudy's like, dude, you won the Wisconsin State, you won the Wisconsin Pro, you took third place over on the Pro Series. You're kind of a really good athlete. And he was talking to me. He's like, hey, you're exactly the kind of guy we're looking for. Someone who's humble, someone who works hard, someone who's really trying to get stronger. And he offered me a sponsorship after I took third place at the Arnold Pro Series. Since then, it's been really good. We've tried a couple of different prototypes with suits. There was one point he tried doing like a canvas single ply, actually. It is insane. If you know anything about multiply, especially canvas, them suits do not budge. And he tried making that in a single ply, and it did work out for a good while, but I really like my stuff. I like the single ply stuff that we've been doing. We haven't really dabbled too much in that. And then the knee wraps. That was my very first introduction into Overkill as a whole. And the cast Overkill knee wraps. You're talking about the wrist wraps of being a whole new level, then knee wraps, dude. I've tried a whole bunch. We've tried the Inzer Atomics, several different types, the black and golds, the green and black, all of these different ones. I tried the Anderson powerlifting ones. I've so many different ones. And the only ones that come even close to it are the Atomics, and those give out over time. The Overkill knee wraps, I've had the same pair I've had for 3 years now, I think, and they're still holding up. I still use them as training wraps. They're still phenomenal. I get great pop out of them. And you put it perfectly. Overkill makes the best, not just the best wrist wraps, but the best quality equipment across the board for equipped lifting.
Yeah, and they sponsor some of the strongest athletes in the game right now. I think that's a testament also to the quality of the product themselves. But for you performing at these huge meets, man, these nationals, holding all these records, do you get nerves going into these meets? Maybe the night before you have trouble sleeping, something you walk in, maybe some indigestion, some bubblies, something. Do you get any nerves during these huge meets, dude?
My nerves actually get real bad a couple of days out. Because everyone knows, especially once you get to once you start getting to a higher level, your body starts reacting really poorly to preps. You're like, man, my body's hurting, my warm-ups feel like crap, my lifts are feeling bad, I'm not getting good sleep, my body's always hurting. And so once I finally finish, my quit lifts, I think about a week out is when I put the squat suit and the bench shirt on for one last time. I do a little SBD, and then about 2, 3, 4 days out, I just do a raw SBD, just keep the body moving. But that last couple of weeks, my body feels like absolute crap. And so I'm doing that last SBD and my body's just not feeling good. I'm like, oh my goodness, I pushed it too hard. And now I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to squat nowhere near as much. And, the whole mind just starts rambling down. And that's when I really start getting them butterflies. My coach, he always just goes, yeah, it's what prep is. Your body's going to feel like crap. Then, just coast into a meet and holy crap, my body feels great come meet day. I wake up, I don't eat breakfast. You got to get them good coefficients.
Yep.
But don't eat breakfast. I just have a little something on the side and get their weigh in. And I'm like a little crabby because I'm hungry. And, the
Yep.
whole 2 hour weigh in, I'm crabby. My body's still hurting. So I weigh in and I start eating. I'm like, man, I feel fabulous. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just warm up. I feel great.
Yeah, and another dimension that people don't think about when it comes to like these elite level athletes like yourself is competing outside of the country. It's hard enough to fly to another state, another time zone, have to adjust to that, but competing out of the country, especially maybe the pressure to represent your country, might bring a whole nother, weight that you have to bear in addition to the performance itself. So tell me about competing outside of the United States and what it meant to you to represent the USA.
Yeah. So I've only competed internationally once so far. That one was actually back in high school before I even got into powerlifting. That one was through Down Under Sports. I went to Australia for track and field. There I actually won my age group, which was the 17 and 18-year-old age group. Man, I don't remember. That was several years ago, but I won that one. And you hit it spot on. That pressure of, hey, I got Team USA on my back, but I got Team Australia, I got Team New Zealand, I got Team China, I got all these other teams all around. They're all trying to represent their country as well as perform. And you have your own pre-meet ritual. I had it for track and field. I still have one for powerlifting, but just that jet lag, the pressure change, like nobody talks about the altitude change and all these other things. Like it's insane on how it really does affect your body when you go and compete internationally. And from that meet, I was thankful to learn that so early on in athletics, that I no longer get to a meet the day before. I will intentionally get there 2 days before I compete, so I can get multiple nights sleeping in that hotel bed. I can get multiple days knowing, hey, this is what it feels like over here. I can get that jet lag figured out. I can get actual food. I'm not getting there the day before, even 2 days before. I'm able to get there several days, acclimate. And I feel like when I go in, that pressure of competing in a new place is almost removed. And now I just have the pressure of what a normal meet would feel like.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And that's like proper preparation. You see it a lot like in the UFC. If people are fighting like in Colorado or somewhere where some altitude, a lot of fighters will get there like 4, sometimes 6 weeks early just to adjust that altitude, have that, cardio level to perform. With the single ply stuff, man, there's one in my mind. There is one stage that is the Mecca, the Super Bowl, and I think we all know that's the IPF. Right. Do you have
Yeah.
any aspirations of going to the IPF at any point in time, since you are an elite level lifter and coming up on that stage?
Yeah. So for me personally, right now, I'm not looking to compete in the IPF. I'm really happy with where I'm at in the USAPL, and I'm really happy with what the USAPL is going towards with the whole IDFPA Worlds. This year they're going to South Korea. I've always wanted to go to Japan and South Korea and all those countries. I'm an absolute nerd. Just love the culture over there. And so when I heard that they were announcing that over a year ago, I'm like, well, hey, why am I going to go jump ship, join another federation? I'll be my third federation in 3 years. Well, why don't I just stay, keep competing, learn, actually build relationships with people. And once I started doing that, I realized I'm taking a step back and I'm looking at all these other federations, IPF included, and I see a lot of, I don't want to say negative competition, but I see a lot of like people wanting to almost take others out. There's no like actual support, especially in the equipped side. One of my teammates on Hartman Performance, Jared Martin, he just competed at Worlds in Iceland and then turned around and did the World Games in China. And I've talked to him a whole bunch, and he said equipped's a lot different than raw when you get to those bigger meets. because a lot of raw lifters are very much almost clicky, whereas equipped, everybody knows, yeah, how are them knee wraps? Hey, how'd that bencher go? Everyone knows the pain. Everyone knows how unfun it is. And when I look at the IPF versus the USAPL, it seems much more grounded almost. The IPF, they have their worlds, they have all these international meets. Yeah, it's cool. But for me, and I've said this several times, and I'll always come back to it, is the drug testing. I am somebody who firmly believes in drug testing and sharing a drug-free platform. I can say right now, I have several people who back it up, drug-free and drug-tested my whole life. But I know over in the IPF, there are several people who constantly get popped. You look at the USAPL, 10% of every single meet. And that's not including the people who set American world records. If you set an American world record, you're automatically getting tested. Plus an additional 10% of everybody at a meet gets tested. Whereas the IPF, you have people going on 4, 5, 6 years without getting tested. And, they're blowing these records out of the water. For me personally, if I'm going to compete in a federation, I'd rather do it in a much more grounded federation where I have better connections, where I have better relationships with people there, and one that prides themselves in the drug testing and sharing a drug tested platform, regardless of level, from local all the way to the world scale.
That's an interesting point of view. And I really I really, really like that point of view. Also, you talking about almost like, I don't want to say building it because the USAPL is a massive, massive platform, but you are, almost there helping build up the USAPL platform, saying this is our house and this is what we're going to do. I don't care what they're doing over there, which I love that, man. I love that. So I really like that. That's a very interesting perspective to have, a very respectable perspective to have, especially with the drug testing, and I like the IPF, I watch it, but
yes, absolutely. They have massive meets, they have great athletes. Absolutely.
Yep.
I want to make sure I never take that away.
Yeah.
A lot of those athletes incredibly strong, incredibly cool. I absolutely love them.
Yeah.
But the third party testing, and I understand the whole side of allowing in-house testing, meet directors doing the testing. I understand that. Where's the actual trust there when you have a third party doing it? There is no gray zone. They're doing the drug testing. You can't have, closed door drug testing. But at the same time, look at the disparity. You're only testing at the national and world level. And even at that, you're not testing nearly as many people.
Yeah.
I want to know when I step on a platform, 10% of everybody there minimum will be tested no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, every industry, every endeavor has its, certain amount of politics. IPF not being absolved from that whatsoever. We just saw that with the ins or knee wraps with the SPD, one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard or seen in my entire life. But also, on the last podcast, I was talking about Blaine Sumner, or the politics in that, where we should have got Blaine Sumner facing off with Dave Hoff. We should have, as a sport, we should have had that. In some stupid, trivial fucking politics held us back from one of the biggest showdowns of all time.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And that, while nobody will ever be immune from politics, no matter how hard you try, everyone will get impacted in some way, shape, or form. I will never agree with not allowing somebody to compete in another federation. I'll never be okay with somebody not wanting to go compete against somebody else. All you're doing is shrinking the sport. Now, I love playing golf, and I always hear, shrink the game, shrink the game. Well, I understand that because they're not having proper etiquette on the golf course. You're having people who don't understand that. But when you're doing the same thing for powerlifting, you want powerlifting to grow. You want all this money. You want payouts. You want big meets. You want the big video screens behind you. You want the top level refereeing. You want all this stuff. Even the Olympics, which I'm sorry, won't ever happen because of how powerlifting is as a sport. Well, you can't constantly ask for these things and then tell your lifters, yeah, but you can't go do your own thing. You have to stay with us regardless of what our politics is, regardless of what we do as a board, regardless of all this stuff. You want to, you have a certain bench technique. Oh, that's too bad. You're not benching like that anymore. Hey, you want to wear your certain knee sleeves. Oh, that's too bad. You can't wear them. Even if you're a sponsored athlete for that company. Yeah, can't wear those no more. And it's just, I will never be okay with some federation, regardless of size or scale, telling lifters what they can and can't do in regards to competing. You know, like when I was competing USAPL, APF meet, why not? No, what's the harm in that? As long as I'm staying drug tested, I'm in the OMT, you know, the out of meet testing pool. As long as it's continuing to be a drug tested league, I don't see the harm in that. I see a whole bunch of people, collegiate nationals for USAPL, whole bunch of those lifters, they can't compete in the IPF or vice versa. They can't compete at USAPL collegiate nationals or even the open nationals for equipped and raw. And it's all because of one clause or Article 14 from one federation. I won't ever be okay with that because I like freedom. No, I'm American. I like my freedom. I want to go do what I want to do. If I want to go compete in some backyard federation for a cause of fucking breast cancer awareness or whatever the hell it is, I want to do that. I don't want to get suspended for 6 months to a year because I wanted to do that. I will never agree with that. I just think it's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, I do. I think it's selfish. You're holding the athlete back, you're holding the sport back, and it's like for what, Like it's very, very rare in a moment of time where we have two people that could be in their prime facing off against each other, and we're just to be stripped of that moment in history that could be important for the sport overall, just because of some words on a paper. Just I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. It's pretty
The other
stupid.
thing the other thing I'm really not on board with is the whole politics between the IPF and USAPL when they were still affiliates with each other. Blaine Sumner's all-time squat and total records, as well as Ray Williams' all-time squat records, those are not reflected in the IPF's world records after the split. I'm sorry, but I'm seeing Blaine Sumner squat 515 kilo. I'm seeing Ray Williams squat 490 kilo raw. How is that not going to be reflected? The USAPL is part of the IPF. I'm sorry, it was part of it. It was a world record. It should count. I'm not
Yeah.
taking anything away from any other lifters. Obviously, they're incredibly strong. But because of politics, you're now shunning and shutting the door on previous greatness because they did not, or they went against what you want to be now.
Yeah, and it's almost like to some point they're using the prestige as a weapon, right? Because it's like we're gonna
Yes.
erase your record. Yeah, if you want to come over here and set the record, you can come over here, but we're gonna erase it. And it's like you're using your platform as a weapon, rather
Yes.
than a spot to highlight athletes, which is what it should be for. Um, but with your man, I'm looking at your numbers right now. These are crazy. So tell me how your technique changed going from raw to single ply, with like your squat, your bench. For me, like when I tried on my single ply velocity, honestly, like maybe a little bit more rounding in the deadlift, but really not that much more. It didn't really change that much for me. But the squat and the bench are just like a completely different ball game in equipment. So tell me how your technique changed for those two.
Yeah. So let's just start with the squat. Um, Shitload of box squats, man. I did not understand the whole sit back. I still struggle with that. The sitting back, allowing your chest to obviously fall forward a bit because you're sitting back so much. I didn't understand that. And even at a time, I tried to cheat that and go high bar in single ply. Everyone knows at a certain point, it's really, really, really difficult to do a high bar single ply squat because unlike multiply, you still need to sit back to allow that suit to pop up. Whereas multiply, the suit kind of helps you pop out the bottom. And so I really had to learn sit back, the vertical shins. I open up the hips. There's a lot of things that, well, I'm explaining those things, but let me restart. The sit back, the vertical shins, the open up the hips, keep your head up, don't fall forward. When I'm raw squatting, it's kind of let me muscle this. Let me get the bar on my back, let me squeeze the bar hard on my shoulders, let me squat down. I'm fighting to get this up. And equipped, I don't want to say I almost do a tempo down, but it's having to learn work with the suit. You have to, it's no longer grab the weight and force the weight to move. It's grab the weight, but now you have to force the suit to move with you. And it was that, going back to the bencher, learning how to row the bar into you, learning how to actually tuck the elbows when you're benching. There was the biggest thing I had to learn bench wise is engaging my lats and how my wrist position was. Because when I was raw benching, a lot of the time, I always had, that little, bar would sit here and I'm benching like this almost as a thumbless grip. You can't do that with 600 plus pounds in a shirt. You just can't, because all of a sudden that bar is going to roll. It's going to roll higher up your hand, and that's how you break your wrist. Can't tuck when you're doing that. I mean, anybody who does equip lifting knows that. You have to hold the bar in the bottom of the palm of your hand. And you have to row it in. Those are things I never learned doing raw. And so it took a while to learn that. It took a lot of bent over barbell rows. And one thing my coach taught me that's helped me blow up my bench lately is whenever I'm doing any kind of rowing movement, treat that as if I'm rowing the bar into me. Treat it as if it's an actual barbell. When I'm doing a lat pull down, when I'm doing a bent over barbell row, when I'm doing a T-bar row, any kind of fucking row. He said, treat it as if you're rowing that barbell into as a bench press. Pull pull your stomach up, pull that bar into it. And that little technique cue has just blown up my bench. I'm actually learning how to roll the bar, not just by benching, but every single accessory rep I do is teaching me how to do that. And that's what I feel like is what helped me learn how to use the equipment so good, is I don't just use the equipment and try to figure it out in those, that hour I'm in the equipment. I learned how to use the equipment during my raw lifts when I'm trying to do box squats, or I'm trying to do tempo squats, when I'm doing my accessories such as belt squat, sitting back in it. Good mornings. Trust your body to actually be backwards. Every single accessory, I'm allowing my body to learn how would I use equipment even when I'm not in the equipment. And that is something that's really helped me learn that stuff so quick.
And when you were raw, were you doing like SBD days, or how did your training look for that?
Back when I was raw, I was still doing a bigger, faster, stronger style program actually. And so, it was like 8-week program. You do 2 weeks of it, a 5x10, 2 weeks at a 5x8. You do a 1 week at a 5x5, and then you do a 1 week peak where you just do a 4, a 3, and a 1, or a 3, 2, 1. And that's what my training style was for damn near 2 years. I would just keep doing that. I would do squats and deadlifts one day. I would do bench another day. And then I do kind of like how Louis Simmons and the West Side. I'd never understood that. At the time, I didn't really know what my training was based off of, but I did something similar to that. I didn't understand the whole max effort versus dynamic effort. I didn't understand any of that because I never learned any of that. I just knew, hey, I should probably do my heavy lifts on my heavy days, take a couple of days off and do something a little bit lighter. If I try going balls to wall every single day, I'm going to get hurt. And so I do bench with bench days, and I do upper body accessories with upper body accessories. I do leg accessories with leg days. I do heavy leg days on heavy leg days, light leg days on light leg days. And I would always alternate. And I never understood that until people started introducing me. Hey, it sounds a lot like you're doing conjugate. Why don't you do this? And they would, that's why I got introduced to the whole conjugate system, max effort, dynamic effort. That's where I learned all that. And my training slowly changed raw wise. And then it all of a sudden started working out better. I wasn't so fatigued every time going into a meet. I remember going into it was at the start. I don't remember which one it was, but year 2021, I did 3 raw meets in the span of 5 months, I think it was. Yeah, I did the Eau Claire in May. I did the Winnicott in July, and then I did the Limitless meet in September. And so I did 3 meets in the matter of like 5 months. And the week going into the meets are on Saturday. On Wednesday, I would do a full bore SBD balls to the wall like RPD 10. I remember it was the Winnicott Wolf Open, because that was the first meet I learned how to do sumo, right? And that week leading up, I felt a weird twig, like something in my low back pulling conventional, because I just fucking squatted like 580, 585, 600 pounds. I benched 400 pounds, and now I'm fucking trying to pull right around 600 pounds in the matter of a couple hours when I got to do it again in 3 days. My body just couldn't keep up with that. And that's why I learned how to do sumo. But anyways, my training always just kept changing all the time, which isn't good. I want to say it right now, it's not good. You don't want to always change your training. But I feel like it's actually it allowed me to learn the right versus the wrong very quickly on my own, because I'm not trying to take it slow. I'm trying to go balls to the wall, which isn't good, but I learned a lot of lessons, which helped me become the better lifter I am today by slowing down.
Yeah. For sure. And you brought up Westside Louis Simmons, bona fide legend. So whenever anyone gets into any piece of the equipment, especially like single ply stuff, it begs the question, are you ever going to go to multiply at all? Do you have any aspirations of dipping the toes into multiply?
Maybe. I'm someone who says never say never, because you never know. What if, I good opportunity. There could be a great opportunity where I can get into a multiply shirt or put on a pair of briefs and then put on my squat suit. Never say never. I'm so sorry. But yeah, never say never, because who knows? It's something I always been around, something I've always seen, and I'm like, that's weird. If I ever did multiply, it would be so I can wear 3-meter wraps instead of the 2-meter wraps.
Yeah, dude. It's funny too with the multiply suits, like you brought up the canvas. It's always funny seeing those pictures of the suits that are like standing up by themselves. It looks like a little army of like fucking
Yep.
suits just coming at you. I love that shit. But for your single ply training, how often are you getting in the shirt and the squat suit per week?
Yeah. So when I'm in prep, what we do is Sundays are squat days. We'll get into my suit, but we'll do straps down 90% of the time until about 3-4 weeks out. Like, we do 90% of our equip training is straps down. Same thing with deadlifts. We don't put the straps up until it is go time, baby. Bench shirt's a little bit different just because of the intricacies of learning the shirt groove and the bar path and all that. Even with that, we spend 1 day a week in the bench shirt, and that one is for maybe 6 weeks out from a meet is when we put it on. Now, if we have an extended off-season period, like last year where I had the San Antonio meet in December and my next meet wasn't until late July, I know that's several months, 7-8 months of no meet, no prep, no peak. And so I think we did 1 or 2 like small little, straps down, knee sleeves still, or maybe like a heavy duty slingshot bench, trying to just keep the body in mind of the heavier weight. But that's where we were able to really add some muscle, really refine our technique. Right now I compete in Seoul, South Korea, December 11th. We're still finishing up my last raw block. So we're still non-equipment. We're 8 weeks out, something like that. And that's just because with how strenuous all that equipment is on your body, especially the squat and the bench, with how much it messes up your shoulders and your elbows, the squat with for me personally, my hips all the time, my hips are always so tight. And so trying to get in that gear every single time I'm in the gym is just not going to work for me, especially long term. And so we do squats. When we do our primary squats, we're in the gear, whatever that variation is, whether it's straps down, whether it's knee sleeves versus knee wraps, whatever the fuck that might be. Bench shirt once a day or once a week as well, whatever that variation might be. And my day 3s are always a secondary squat movement, like a high bar squat or an SSB squat or belt squat or hack squat or whatever, something to prime the body before I even do the deadlifts. And the reason for that, my coach said it and it made 1,000 times sense. When you do a meet, you never go into a deadlift fresh. So why the hell are you training it fresh? I never looked at it that way. And every time I'm in training, I'm peaking, I'm pulling, 750, 760, 770. I'm doing great. I get to a meet and I pull 730. I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, well, you're training it fresh. When the hell are you ever going to be fresh in a deadlift in a meet? And we started training it like that. I do a I don't want to say intense, probably an RPE 7, nothing crazy. High bar squat, whatever the fuck it might be. But then I go into deadlifts right after. My body's a little sore. My hips are a little sore, a little achy. My knees, especially when it's in prep. And so we put on the briefs for deadlifts, straps down. And I can notice a great big difference. But for total amount of days in a week I'm in gear, it's only 3 days a week. And it's that 4th day, just secondary bench, dynamic bench. But we're still pushing pretty heavy raw numbers bench-wise. And it's normally like a closer grip to really fire the triceps. Because I've noticed, my coach has pointed out several times, my shoulders just get really fucking achy during meet preps from, being in that low bar position. And then you're trying to do, bench in a shirt, and your shoulders just aren't meant to be supporting, 1,500 sub total every single week after week for multiple reps and multiple sets. And so try to take it a little easier. You still want to bench several times a week. Stop benching competition grip. Stop getting in the shirt 2-3 times a week. Stop trying to push heavy bench weight 2-3 times a week.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talked about the demand of the equipment, right? So the equipment has a lot of different demand than anything raw will ever really have, especially on the central nervous system. So your first meet, single ply, talk to me about how you went about going through that meet versus maybe some of your raw meets, especially like you said, you're fatigued at the end of the deadlift, and now you add these variables like a squat suit and a bench shirt that are going to add even more fatigue. So tell me how that first single ply meet went for you.
Really bad. Really poorly. So I say really poorly. When you look at open powerlifting, it still looks like I did great. You know, I took second place overall in the open. I won the junior national title, whatever. It looks great on paper. But day of meet, man, that was horrible. Going into it, I was not expecting to do the quick turnarounds of the squats. You know, when you get to a good equipped meet, them people, they know how to bust those knee wraps out. You know, it's quick. You know, not as quick as raw. I mean, raw, all you got to do is go out there, tighten the belt, and you're good to go. But still, I'm used to having to spend 10, 15 minutes wrapping my knees, doing all this stuff myself, taking my time, getting in the suit, taking my time, getting underneath the bar. It's almost like I forgot how to actually compete versus training lifting. I just completely forgot. And I went into the meet and I opened up with, I think it was like 770 or 750. I don't remember. It was something like that, mid high sevens. And I was so exhausted. I'm like trying to catch my breath. You know, I completely spaced out. I didn't even submit a second attempt on squats. And my guy, his name was Garrett Parkhill. He trains, I think he now assistant coach at Midland University. He was like, hey, dude, you never submitted a second attempt. What do you want your third attempt to be? And I'm like, shit, I'm fucking gassed. Like, I'm dying right now. I'm trying to catch my breath. I'm in Dallas. It's like 100 degrees right now. This is not going too hot, man. And I said, you know what? I've always wanted to do attempts 826, 375, 826. It's all reds in the collar. That just looks good to me. Fuck it, let's do it. And he submitted it. And that was my very first ever RP10 squat I've ever done. And that was tough. I like to joke around with him. He was the first person to actually draw blood on my knees from the knee wraps. You know, he tightened them things down. We cranked them, everything under the sun. That was definitely a really, really tough meet. And then we went to the bench and I failed my opener. I'm like, Jesus, man. I went 2 for 3 on squats. I filled my opener bench. And my second bench, we went up. They said I filled my opener bench. I think it was like soft lockout or up and down motion or something like that. I'm like, no, it wasn't. But fuck, let's just go up. You know, everyone knows if you fill your opener bench, you got to go up. I mean, that's just trying true method. And I go up. And I lock it out, and I'm moving it back and forth like this, trying to lock it out. I'm holding it for fucking 8, 9, 10 seconds. I'm holding it. I finally get the rack command, and I get 2-1 no lift. I'm like, oh no. And Garrett went to the jury table. The jury overturned that, but I didn't know that going into my third bench. And so in my head, I'm like, shit. I'm 0 for 2 right now on bench. I'm about to bomb out my first equipped meet. And I get out there, and I think it was like 595 is what I benched or something like that. And I just smoked it. It was no contest, no. He tucked the shirt down. What he did is he actually came around the back and lifted up the back of the shirt higher up on my trap so I can get my touching point a little bit lower on my stomach. And it worked great. And so I was able to stay in the meet on my third bench. Like I said, try and true method. If you fail your opener and your second, just go up again. What's the worst that happens? And then we went into deadlifts, and I mean, I was wearing that fat man suit, same Inzer design suit. I found another one that still had the straps on there, but I could get the straps up myself, and straps up I can do a bodyweight squat in. That's not really a single ply suit you should be wearing in a meet. That's not. But I pulled, it was like 700 or something like that, 695. I don't fucking know. But pulled that, and I was super amped, but overall, my very first equipped meet was just horrible. I learned a lot, but it was just horrible overall.
That's awesome, dude. And that's the drama of equipped powerlifting that just makes it fucking awesome, And it's so funny because you'll see, like, if someone's competing raw, they missed their opener, they're just frazzled, like, oh no, oh shit, what's happening, you know? But the experienced, equipped guy's just over there, like, yep, I missed fucking first, second attempt, I'll get the third. It's like, fuck yeah, dude, fuck yeah, dude. And he just keeps going up, and you're like, what the fuck? You failed the other two, yeah, but we'll get this one. Like, it's
Yeah.
fucking awesome, dude. And with all these accolades and titles, man, some people have talked about something called imposter syndrome. They kind of suffer from like, is this really me? Was I really meant to do this? Like, what is going on here? Was this something that you always saw for yourself, whether it be in maybe, like you said, track and field, or did you see your athleticism leading to a national title, let alone fucking 6?
Well, if we go back to track, learning now, I was a hot-headed kid, big-headed. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be that good. I'm going to be that good. And I wasn't. I just wasn't. That's why I'm not doing it anymore. I wasn't that good at it. I was just very strong. I could muscle a 12-pound shot 60 feet. I get to college and it's now a 16-pound shot. I can't muscle that thing more than 40 feet. I actually have to learn the technique. And I just wasn't that adept at learning it because I had fucking 6 years of middle school and high school muscling a fucking 12-pound shot. You know, why am I going to learn that now? And when I got into lifting, it was having to learn something else. And that made me immediately become humble. Yeah, I can go to the gym and fucking squat. Yeah, I can go to the gym and bench. But is your hip staying down on the bench? Are you pausing it? Are you squatting to depth? And so it forced me to be humble right away. It forced me to learn again. And then when it comes to imposter syndrome, the more weight I add to the bar, the higher my placing, the more the PRs grow, the more the records gain, the more I'm like, damn, maybe I just got lucky that meet. The amount of times I said that going into my last meet with where the fuck were we? In Pennsylvania. The amount of times I said that during that prep, going to that meet, because I squatted 881, my first 400 kilo squat, bench 645 on the dials, 293 kilo, and I pulled 751. It was 341 kilo. That was the San Antonio meet. Doing prep for this last meet, dude, I wasn't able to pull shit. I could not pull over 700 consistently to save my life. I'm like, I can't fucking pull 700 flat. Semi-fresh still. It's not like I just fucking squatted 900 pounds. I can't even pull 700 semi-fresh. How the hell did I pull 751 back then? No, bench. I'm fucking dealing with shoulder issues. My triceps, my elbows are hurting. I can't engage leg drive. I'm failing 600-pound bench, or I can't even fucking touch at 640. How the hell did I touch 645 back then? At this meet, I fucking touched 672, and I'm 305. But I'm like, before all that, I did a 700-pound bench to a one board. And so on my head, yeah, I did 645 me, but I'd done 700 to a one board. How the hell did I do that? And now I'm struggling with this. And then squat was the biggest one. Dude, how the hell did I get to depth on a 400 kilo squat? And I can't even fucking open my hips at 600 pounds. And it's that imposter syndrome, man. You hit it spot on. That's something I deal with a lot, especially during my preps. My body just feels like shit, and my lifts are feeling bad, and my warm-up's not getting better. My weight's all over the place, and I'm like, dude, maybe I just got lucky that meet. And I go through the meet, or I go through the workout, and hey, that actually wasn't too bad. And then go into the next week, and the same thing happens. I get into the gym, I'm trying to warm up, I'm like, dude, this all feels like shit. How the hell did I do that when I fucking can't even get to depth? And all of a sudden, hey, look at that, I fucking did better this week. And it's just the biggest roller coaster of emotions that I never experienced raw, because equipped, there's so many other factors to consider with just the gear alone that you never experience raw.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you say that, because these numbers you definitely don't hit by accident. I mean, these are some massive, massive numbers here. And with your numbers, are you more motivated by the accolades, like the national titles, world records potentially in the future? Or is it more like, look, I want to squat this number, I want to bench this number, I want to hit this total? What is the major motivation behind your performance?
The major motivation, if I'm going to be real, is I just really like the feeling of getting under, or getting like, all right, we're going to have to edit that out. Because I'm fucking, I'm trying to gather my words.
You're good, brother.
I got to think about it. My favorite part of lifting is where in the squat, you rack it after a really heavy lift and you come out from underneath it and you undo your belt, that feeling of relief, like it's done.
Yeah.
That's over with. That is the best feeling in the world for me personally. You know, the 3 white lights, whatever the record is, whatever the play, that's all cool. But knowing I can do it will always be way cooler to me. That's what really drives me is, hey, I never really got to see how far I can go in throwing. Hey, I never got to see how far I can go in football. I did rugby for a little bit. Hey, I never went to see how far I can go in rugby. I did one strongman meet and I won that one. It was the Walleye Weekend in Fond du Lac. You know, I only did one. I never got to see how far I can go in that. And so now I'm at powerlifting. I'm like, I kept stopping short. I always stopped. You know, I lost interest or I kept getting injured, whatever it might be. Why don't I actually push and see where I can go with it? And for me, that's the other thing that really motivates me is, cool, I did it, but what's saying I can't do it again and I can't do more next time?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do it more than, I think it was what, if you do it more than like twice, it's not an accident, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, being able to divert that energy in a positive way into something else is, I mean, it's a quality that not a lot of people have because they'll live with that remorse, that regret of not pursuing something, and they'll just let that fester into all this negative energy where they project outwards onto other people instead. So now, instead of trying to accomplish something on their own, they'll take their failures and they'll just project that on people that are actually doing something, which is,
Mhm.
a clear sign of a loser, and
Yes,
y-
absolutely.
it is what it is. But for the strongman stuff, how did you even get into? You're a big fucking dude, man. How did you get into the strongman stuff?
Yeah, so at the time I was living in Oshkosh and at Oshkosh I went to this one gym called O Town Iron. I haven't been there in several years, so I don't know how they are. I don't know who's owning it. None of that right now. And while I was there, they always did a thing called Strongman Saturdays. And I was at the gym one time. I'm doing deadlifts off in the corner on the deadlift platform. And I'm like, hey, what's that all about? I'm like, come on, check it out. And I did my very first day, I did Atlas stones to a certain height. Like you gotta pick it up, put it on a board, all that. And I was like, this is really fun. And they did some kind of relay. You had a keg, a sandbag, and I think it was like a yoke or some shit like that. And that, I was like, hey, this is kind of fun. And I did it for a couple of months. And they were like, hey, we're doing this strongman meet down in Fond du Lac called Walleye Weekend. I'm like, yeah, I'll come down and do it. And during that happened in June. I actually didn't do any strongman training the entire month of May, actually. Because, XYZ factors. I wasn't going Saturdays, work, overtime, whatever the fuck it was. So I went to the meet without doing a single strongman event for literally a month. And I showed up and I fucking battled it out. Went all the way to an overtime event with another guy where we had to do, is it the Samson hold or the Hercules hold? Whatever that event is called, the grip strength one with the two
Yep.
pillars falling apart.
Yep.
And I beat him on grip. And so I was super, super stoked about that. But that was the only time I ever did strongman.
And what brought you back to powerlifting from strongman? Why did you decide to come back instead of pursue that?
I was actually doing them at the exact same time.
Okay.
For me, the reason why I didn't pursue strongman is I didn't see an actual future in it in which I don't want to say couldn't take pride in, because I could take pride in, I could take pride in powerlifting, rugby, strongman, right? I take pride in it because I did it. But at the time, I'm looking at it, road to nationals, road to regionals, road to state. And it was never properly explained to me at the time. This is the next big meet. This is how you get here. This is how you get there. This is how you do that. And nobody ever explained that to me. And so at the time when I was trying to do it, I never had a group that could explain that. And so I'm like, well, powerlifting, it's very simple. You compete at a local meet, you lift a total, and you go to nationals. That's easy. That's easy for my simple brain. For strongmans, but you gotta do this meet, and then you gotta do that meet. You can't do that meet though because it's not sanctioned. Same thing with powerlifting, but it wasn't as simple.
Yeah.
That's why I chose to do powerlifting over strongman.
Yeah. And you're still, you're 24 years old. Is that right?
Yep.
Man, yeah, fuck, you're still really, really young, man, but you do have a little bit of tread on the tires, and lifting these heavy weights comes with its own form of maturity. With your warm-ups, have you noticed anything? Because I'm 32. So when I was God, I fucking sound old here. But when I was your age,
Yeah.
I didn't have to fucking warm up at all. I mean, I was still professional wrestling at that time. So warm ups for me were like just non existent. I could go in, go 100, doesn't fucking matter. You know, the Louis Simmons, like you've never seen a lion stretch before he chases his prey, right? And I was just total
Never.
fucking meathead and it was awesome. But then it led to injuries in my late 20s. Do you do any type of like mobility work, GPP stuff to kind of keep the grease in the groove?
Dude, every time somebody asks me how long you go to the gym for, I always say it's like 2.5 hours minimum. And they're always like, whoa, why? And so, because I take an hour to actually warm up for my actual workout. To help with weight management, I eat really good food. I try eating a lot of whole food, a lot of good food, but still, I'm 300 pounds. I can't just lose weight by eating better. You also got to do walks. It helps with the cardiovascular. You can't load 900 pounds up if you get out of breath going up a flight of stairs. And so I spend 20 to 30 minutes on a treadmill every single workout. I get to the gym, I hop on a treadmill, I just do a nice, easy incline walk, 2.5, 3 miles an hour at a 6 incline, gets the body warmed up, it gets my body moving around. And then I spend roughly half an hour foam rolling, doing mobility, doing actual stretching routines, trying to get the tightness, the hips, the calves, my shoulders, my back loosened up to where I can get underneath a bar without pain, to where I can hold on to a bar without my elbows and shoulders screaming, where I can, fucking get into a sumo position without my hips yelling at me. And so I think that started about a year and a half ago, maybe, where I wouldn't say I did a great warm up routine, but I would go in, I'd probably do 10 minutes. I'd lay on a foam roller and warmed up, let's go. And over the course of last year, I've really, really tried to get a good warm up in because I feel like the better the warm up is, the better the workout is most of the time. And if we look prior to all that, yeah, I did the same thing you did back when I was doing that whole bigger, faster, stronger, even early, before I even knew what West Side and all that conjugate was, I would go into the gym. Yep, feel good. Do a couple of arm rotations. All right, let's get underneath the bar and just plate, 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 plate. Hey, I'm at 600 pounds. Let's do this for a 5-piece. And that was my workout.
That's fucking awesome. But there is something to that. There is utility in being like a Neanderthal barbarian, like meathead. Like, cause, sometimes, especially nowadays with our access to information, you can get, paralysis by analysis. And then you get the guy for like, if you want to use a bodybuilding example, you get a guy that's like 150 pounds telling the 220-pound giant guy how to fucking work out because it's science based, So like, I think there's a perfect harmony of both. But the paralysis of analysis is definitely something I see like a lot of today.
Yes. I struggle with that a lot too, especially when I'm in my equip preps. I'm sitting at my phone watching the video. Why did that feel like shit? I'm slowly watching it. And I told my coach after one meetup call, I'm like, dude, I'm being too much of a bitch. I just need to get underneath the bar, fucking trust the suit. I know how to squat, fucking squat it down and stand back up. Bench. I was struggling with bench. I had a good intro to the prep, but then I just went to shit halfway through. And at the end, he's like, dude, you know how to fucking bench. Get on the bench, grab the bar, and bring it down. And you can do analysis afterwards. You can do analysis and your warm-up routine to make sure your body's properly going. But when it's go time, shut the hell up, get underneath the bar, and lift the fucking weight. As you said, there's a great fine line. And for me, that's where I found that fine line. I can be great, super analytical with my warm-ups. I want to make sure X, Y movement parts are moving. Afterwards, yeah, I probably collapsed a little bit in that lift. But during my warm-up sets, during my working sets, my top sets, and at me, I make sure not to watch those videos because then I'm going to be like, oh, I should probably do this more. So I should probably look at this. And then what happens in the next set? I focus only on that, and the rest of the lift feels like shit. And it just constantly keeps spiraling.
Yeah, and the details are important, especially your level. That 1% difference in that form or tweaking the equipment can make the difference between first and second place. But also in the details, when you get caught up in nitpicking too much, like you said, you can get in your own head, and then you think you don't know how to do something you've already done 1,000 times before.
Yep.
And it can become a detriment more than something that has a positive impact on your training. Are you speaking of Westside, are you using a lot of like bands and chains, cutting the resistance a little bit?
I used to for about a year and a half. And then when I started working with Jeremy, he said, he pointed out a really good fact. When you do a meet, you're squatting free weight, you're benching free weight. You're not doing a meet against bands. So why the fuck are you still using bands 2-3 weeks out? And so that's what we did. We took the bands off, and I noticed immediately, wow, I'm kind of fucking weak. I kept saying, yeah, hey, look at this 700-pound top end squat. No, buddy, that's 450 pounds against 250 pounds when you unrack it. We're in the hole, that's only 50 pounds. It's only 500 pounds in the hole. You're not fucking squatting 750. And so I used to all the time. I truly did. I only squatted against bands. I only benched against bands. I only deadlifted against bands until like 3 weeks out, and I'd take them off, and I'd be really shitty at it. And I was always trying to figure out, man, why am I so bad at lifting? And I started working with him, and he took the bands off completely. Like, we'll still do banded stuff, like when we're doing box squats or, something in the off season, let's throw some light bands on to get some additional resistance. But as a drug-free lifter, my body does not respond as well to the accommodating resistance as others have experienced. And so, just looking at my own personal process or progress, I should say, I grew this much doing accommodating resistance over 2 years. I grew this much. I can't get in. I grew like twice as much weight-wise not doing that. And so, yes, I have done accommodating resistance with the bands and the chains. We do a lot of chain work actually because it's consistent weight, whereas bands, it's a continuous changing weight. I still like doing band work, but it's something we stepped away from, and we've noticed a massive improvement in my overall lifts.
Yeah, and a lot of people will create that false equivalency, right? They'll be like, well, it was fucking 800 at the top, so 800 is 800, right? And it's like, no, that's not how it works, and that's why you're gonna shit the bed in your damn meat. Like, it's a completely different concept. With that, with like the whole West Side and conjugate and all that kind of stuff, did you have any lifter in particular that kind of like inspired you, or someone that you kind of look to? We have a lot of like content online, a lot of motivational stuff, especially like in the 2010s when you had like Pete Rubish and Dan Green and all these just fucking monsters that were just like so cool to look at and be like, wow, like this is sick. Did you have someone that really inspired you in the sport?
Yeah, so the lifter, and I should say the exact lift that inspired me to be like, wow, hey, I want to be strong. I want to have a big fucking squat, was Ray Williams' 490 kilo squat at the Arnold. I saw that video. I'm like, holy shit, that's insane. And, I'm not great with names. I don't really know that much of the history of the sport. I apologize. My coach Hartman has been beating me to death about, how do you not know this guy? How do you not know that guy? You should know this. You should know this. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to remember all these names. And so I'm trying to get better. I swear to God, I'm trying to. But the one lift that was like, wow, that's insane. I want to do that, was Ray Williams' 490 squat. And then I saw Blaine Sumner's 515.5 kilo squat. And I'm like, wow, that's insane. And it's just, whoa. This is also cool.
Yeah. And in my mind too, Ray Williams, just absolute legend. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Mark Henry. Mark Henry, one of the strongest people to ever walk the face of the earth. Now, for me, I would say, although it is like, it can be subjective to an extent, I would say for the USAPL, if we're talking about like the Mount Rushmore, I would say Ray Williams is the greatest USAPL raw lifter of all time, Blaine Sumner equipped. What do you say?
Yeah, for just USAPL and IP, dude, I'm going to be honest with you, because I want to add Bonica Brown in there. Absolutely stud. Absolute stud. You got to add Jesus Alvarez for what he's doing now in the raw side. But now you look at all these middleweights and all these lightweights for raw. You got, Perk, you got fucking, Joe Bornstein, Taylor Atwood when he was dominating. You look at the equipped side, yeah, exactly, dude. You got all these people that are just dominating. I won't put anything out there for who I think's on that Mount Rushmore, because if I'm going to do a Mount Rushmore, the 4 greatest lifters ever, I'm going to do Bonica Brown because she's a great friend of mine. I absolutely love her to death. She's one of the coolest people I know. Bonica Brown, I'd say Ed Cohen, that's a no fucking brainer. That's a no brainer. And after that, John Hack, No, I lift with him sometimes. Great guy over here in Madison. I lift with him. Super, 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 super strong guy. After those three, I'm not going to be able to fill in that fourth one. I don't know. I won't. And Ray Williams, Jesus, Blaine, who the fuck knows? You can
Yeah.
fill that one 1,000 different ways. We could sit here all day. Well, this
Yeah.
guy's got better accolades. They're all fabulous and incredible in their own right.
Yeah. John Hack, incredible, incredible lifter, both drug-free and now post, just incredible. Also, Ed Cohen, a cool thing about Ed Cohen, a lot of people don't know that when you go on open powerlifting, a lot of his meets are single ply. A lot of them are equipped. You know, a lot of the raw guys, they love Ed Cohen, and rightfully so, arguably the GOAT. A lot of people don't know about his equipped endeavors, and a lot of like his iconic imagery has been in the powerlifting equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's insane, man.
And what do you think from your side? You have an interesting side being in the USAPL equipped, because the USAPL is, like most organizations, raw dominated, right? So what do you think the biggest misinterpretation is, at least in your point of view, that the raw people have about what you do in the equipment?
Man, I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, and it'll keep being said 1,000 times over. Equipped is just the old, bald, fat people who can't squat to depth anymore. That is what equipped is. I hear it all the time. Hell, the gym I train at Madtown Fitness, that's one of the gyms I primarily train at. I train at Primal Strength Fitness in Stoughton. You know, Stoughton, that's primarily a multiply gym. But when I'm training at Madtown, that's a bodybuilder / raw powerlifting. Anytime I'm in my bench shirt, you know, I'm fat, I'm bald, and so I'm fitting in that stigma. I'm like, no, guys, that's not it. It's fun and it's hard, but that's the one difference. That's the one thing I always hear about equipped lifting versus raw lifting. I'm like, no, that's not really it. But what can you do?
Yeah, exactly. The thing I always say is, like, try it. Just try it. Give it a try. Give poly a try. It hurts, especially the shirt. You know, I have a super katana, and that thing bites me every time like a rabid dog when I bench in it. So it's like, give it a try, man. It's very hard.
I don't know who I heard it from. I don't remember, but I heard a rebuttal to the very common phrase, well, why don't you take the gear off and see how strong you are? You hear that all the time. Raw lifters telling equipped lifters that all the time. And the one rebuttal I heard that actually works is, why can't you put the gear on and beat me then?
Yep.
And ever since I heard that, I started saying that. And nobody's willing to do that. It's always, come on over to the raw side and see what you can do.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I train raw. I don't compete raw. Yeah, I still would like to compete raw. Who knows? I might do one next year. I don't fucking know yet. But you've never put on a bench shirt. You don't even know what a tight pair of reps feels like. Squat to depth when you can't feel your own feet, man. That'll teach you the definition of grind.
Yeah. 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 It's like, if it's so easy, if the equipment does all the work, then it should be easy, right? Come over, give it a try. Come kick my ass in it then. If it's as easy as you think, then it should be no problem for you. No sweat off your brow to just come over here and mop everyone in the equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
being from Wisconsin, are you a Packers fan?
a little bit. I was way bigger into football and baseball and the NBA. I was way bigger into that when I was in high school and college. Right now, I'll watch the game. I'll watch any game that's on. And I'll cheer on the Packers. That's what I'll say. I'll cheer on the Packers.
Okay, go Pack, go. We can get that. Official cheesehead on the podcast. Okay, we can get that then. So outside of lifting these massive weights, what do you like to do? What are some of your hobbies?
I mean, I'm a big fucking nerd, man. I'm just gonna say it straight up. I play video games with my buddies. I like golfing too. I'm not good at it, but I like golfing. I love building Legos, dude. That's one of my biggest hobbies I'm into right now. I mean, above you can see some of them. I absolutely love building Legos. I actually today just bought the Lego Coliseum. Now, if any of your viewers know anything about Lego, they'll know that's a pretty big fucking purchase. But I love Legos, love gaming. I'm just an absolute nerd at heart.
Yeah, and it looks like you named a few things that are a lot like more methodical, lower intensity, especially something like golf, man. It's another thing, dude. A lot of people think golf is easy. It is so fucking hard.
I'm bad. I'm horrible at golf.
Dude, it's so fucking hard, man. I've only been golfing 3 times. And the first time I went in there like hot shit. I was like, yeah, I've been an athlete my whole life. Fucking what's golf, man? It's gonna be nothing. This old people can do this. I'm gonna walk in here and kill it. And I was just getting outclassed by 75-year-old men. And I'm like, holy shit, I suck at this.
Yeah.
This is really hard.
Dude, yes, it's so hard.
It's crazy. But with getting back to powerlifting here, the importance of nutrition. You're a massive guy. You say you try to eat clean like that. What does your diet look like on a day-to-day?
Yeah, off season I don't really stick that hard to any kind of diet or macro plans or calorie plans. I don't, if I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat. If I'm not hungry, I won't eat. I'm gonna still try to eat healthy. I'm not going out and getting fucking McDonald's and Burger King. I'm not doing that. I'm still gonna try cooking up some food. I'll cook up eggs, throw in some toast, butter it versus I'm gonna put. I don't fucking care. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat a food that I enjoy. My girlfriend makes us some really good spaghetti. Oh, I can't eat that because it's too much fat. No, I'm gonna fucking eat it. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat it. Now, if I'm getting close to a meet, like once I start prep, once I get that 6, 7, 8 weeks out, hey, I'm a little too fat. I should probably lose about 10 pounds. Yeah, I'll cut back. Maybe I'll stop eating before bed, or maybe I'll use lower fat or lower carb bread than I am normally using. I think that's actually what helped me so much with nutrition going into a meet. That makes me less stressful is I'm not really changing all that much. I'm still doing my morning walks. I'm just not eating a Halo Top container every night before bed. And, it's the small things. I'm just cutting 1 or 2 things out or changing 1 or 2 things, but I'm not changing anything that great.
Yeah. And I talked to in the previous episode 14, I talked to Shane Martin, proud, strong Canadian lad up there, I should say. And I was talking to him about like world level competitions, national level competitions versus something that's maybe in your backyard and how you approach these things mentally. Is it the same amount of intensity? Is it the same type of training? Because I can see multiple ways to look at it. If you have like a nationals or a big meet, it's like that pressure, like you're locked in, you're ready to go. And then maybe like the backyard meet kind of slips by a little bit, like, it's in my backyard, I'm just doing this for fun or whatever. Or at the same time, could be the perspective of like, it doesn't matter, my name is my brand. And so it doesn't matter if I'm in my backyard or if I'm in fucking Korea, I'm gonna perform. So how do you look at these national meets versus maybe some of the ones that are closer to you?
Yeah, so that actually goes way back to high school athletics with football and track and field. When you gotta get on a bus and fucking drive 2 hours versus a home meet. Well, no matter what, you're competing for the people behind you. You're competing for the people who've supported you. And so when it comes to powerlifting, if I got a meet that's down the road versus over in South Korea, I'm competing not just for myself, but I'm competing for my coach who spent so many hours helping me, competing for my girlfriend who, love her to death, helps me with my meal prep, my nutrition, and especially helped me in the gym with the equipment. I'm competing for the people who have supported me and like helped spot me, help wrap my knees. I'm competing for so many people. And so if I go into a meet or a competition like, it's whatever, I'm letting those people down. Because why would they help me if I'm not going to take something seriously?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that's a good way to carry and represent yourself as well. And speaking of the crew dynamic, the group aspect of things, do you have a good crew of people that you train with, especially with the equipment and stuff?
Yeah. So going back to that, every Sunday I go to Stoughton. There's a gym in Stoughton called Primal Fitness. Now down there's a whole bunch of people who compete multiply, and they also have strongman. Love it. Great gym. Love everybody there. Great relationships with them. But I'm a single-ply guy who has to walk out of a combo rack. I'm not multiply in a monolith. And so while I go down there and they help me out and I love them to death, I kind of semi on my own. And so that is a very important skill I feel like a lot of people need to know is, sure, you can... What the fuck was that? Sorry. I'm so sorry. I just heard a weird noise.
No worries,
So
bro.
no, let me back up. I just lost my train of thought. Learning to
Train alone.
So it's very important to have a good group. I would
Yeah.
be nowhere where I am without that group in Stoughton. I give every single squat and bench and deadlift PR to them because they've helped me out so much equip side. But at the same time, if you don't have a crew there helping you, are you just not going to lift? Are you just not going to compete? No, people have their own lives. And so needing to learn how to lift alone and being able to take care of stuff alone, I think is just as important.
Yeah, I think so too, because also you're not as crappy as it is, 9 times out of 10, you're not always gonna have a crew with you. You know, people have
Mhm.
their lives outside of powerlifting, and if you can't adapt to that, what are you just not gonna train anymore? Like, you're not gonna,
Absolutely.
you know? And that's really one of the hardest parts about having a crew or the equipment is the potentiality of having to, like, rely on other people. But when it works, and when you click, you click.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You said that spot on. I will never say anything bad about that crew. Love them to death. I will, if they ask for help, I will always help them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I go to Madtown, who the hell there knows how to set a bench shirt? So I have to learn how to set my own shirt and it's shit like that. I think it's important to always have a crew, especially equipped. Raw, absolutely. It's important to have a group of people to train with a crew. Absolutely. But it's even more important than equipped. But when you don't have a crew there with you every day, you still have to learn how to lift.
Yeah. And it might be just because I have been focusing on the equipped side more so lately than previously, but I'm personally seeing a lot more representation in the equipment single ply than I have previously in previous years. Are you seeing that same sentiment in the USAPL? Mm.
What do you mean by that? So
Are you
I might not just be understanding the question.
Are you seeing like an uptick in the competitors for USAPL equipped in recent times versus maybe previously with a lot more raw people? I've noticed a lot more people hopping into equipment, getting curious recently. Is that something that you've noticed as well?
A little bit. What I feel like I see is you see a great influx of lifters at the high school and collegiate level. You see that all the time. That's why high school and collegiate nationals for USAPL is some of the biggest meets of the year. But a lot of times you have, the raw lifting side just shot straight up, right? Whereas the equipped side was kind of in a downslope. And so now you see that raw side semi tick down for whatever reason. It's not having another blowing out year of records and sales and memberships and all that. And so you don't see as many raw, but you still have the same consistent equipped. And I think that's why equipped, while it's not as popular, won't go anywhere because it's so consistent. There's people who will always be there. There's people who will always train it and want to teach others about it.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day too, it's just fun. Like it's a lot of fun, even even if you're just a spectator, man, it's fucking fun. You go back and even watch like Andy Bolton or like some of those early like WPOs, man, Chuck Vogelpohl. I
Mhm.
mean, really, like you're gonna
Yeah.
watch Chuck Vogelpohl and not be entertained. You're out of your fucking mind. Like 10 out of 10 times you're gonna be entertained.
You're gonna see fucking Dave Hoff when he did his 1,400 kilo total. You're not gonna be impressed by that.
Yeah.
Jimmy Kolb, you're gonna see him fucking have 1,000 pounds and rep that shit out for 30 reps. You're not gonna be entertained by that. Sure, it's a band shirt. Sure, I don't give a fuck. That's 1,000 pounds. I can't even walk that out yet. He's fucking repping that shit out for 30. That's so impressive.
Yeah, and it was if I had it doesn't matter if I was wearing 3 band shirts. If I had 1,000 pounds over my fucking face, my bones would turn into dust. Complete fucking dust. Like, and I was gonna bring up Jimmy too, because another interesting case for him is he has said on multiple times, like, this number, and then maybe I'll go back and do this number, and then maybe. So it seems like kind of lately his sentiment with the 1,500 is like, I'm gonna hit this 1,500 and then maybe go back and do something else. Do you have any of those numbers in your head where you share the same, like, I want to hit this total and then maybe I'll go do this, or this squat or bench and then go do this?
For me, it's I have my big shining achievement goal, and then there's milestones to it. I can't set a big goal and expect to hit that over the course of a year. I have a multi-year goal. For me, my biggest goal is squat 1,000. I want to load up 455 kilo. I want to squat it in a USAPL meet. I want to do that. I can't do that. At the time, I didn't even squat 400 kilo at the time. Now I want to load up an extra 55 kilos into it. Fuck no, it's not happening. And so I'll squat 400 kilo. Okay, why don't I try benching a little bit more? All right, now in training, I squatted 405 or 410 kilo. Okay, now we'll try doing that in a meet. And so for me, it's I want to squat 1,000, but that's not going to happen right away. That's going to
Yeah.
take time. And so why am I going to try and bum rush that and just sprint right to that goal? There's a lot of other goals I can try and achieve. Why I can build up my conventional deadlift. I can do X, Y, Z. I don't Just have fun with it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like the 1,000 pound squat you could call your crowning achievement, especially doing it in the USAPL, like having to deal with walking it out, having to deal with it being on a combo rack, the oscillation of the bar. I mean, there is just a ridiculous amount of variables to deal with there that you can hang your hat on and be like, not only did I squat 1,000, I did it in one of, if not the strictest federation around. I did it drug tested. I walked it out. I had to deal with this, moving like a fucking earthquake bar over here. I mean, I think that's a very commendable goal to have on your head there. What about, talk to me about the bench press? What's the big bench press for you?
I want to bench 6 reps. I want to load up 717 and do it. I really want to do that. But it looks like that goal might be more quickly achievable than this squat. But at the same time, I'm not trying to bum race that. I'm not fucking throwing the shirt on, trying to stitch the sleeves tighter and tighter and tighter to try and fucking force it to happen. I want to not only be able to do it, I want to be able to do it again. I want to squat 1,000, but I also want to have the ability to do it again.
Yeah, and that's what, you could be risking your long-term potential trying to bum rush that goal. Sometimes, like, especially with the introduction of like the band shirts, man, you see some people that maybe can't even do 385 raw and they're loading up like 700 in a band shirt. And it's like, you're just asking for an injury. You're going to take 10 steps back to get a half a step forward.
Yep, I completely agree with that.
Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. And
Uh,
I'm curious about the drug testing in the USAPL. How does the out of competition testing work? How is that structured? How many are you tested randomly or?
Yeah, so to be part of their Team USA for their whole IDFPA, their new structure and all that, if you want to be part of that, you are automatically subject to be part of their OMT testing pool. So out of meet testing. And so I have to fill out an athlete's whereabout and they have every right to show up wherever I say I'm gonna be. And so if I'm going to be part of their world's team, I'm automatically subject to that. When they were doing their pro series, same exact thing. If I wanted to be part of the pro series, I had to be part of an their out of meet testing pool. And so yeah, I'm just automatically part of it. And I see no problem with that. If I'm going to be a drug tested athlete, I'm going to be being on a drug tested stage. Why should I be concerned if I'm getting out of meet tested?
Yeah, I like that format of testing too. It's like the UFC. The UFC does the same thing. It's like, it doesn't really matter where you are, they're gonna show up. I mean, famously, they showed up on fucking Conor McGregor's boat one time, to test him. Like, we're here. Like, I really like that. I do believe in drug-free sport. I love the untested side of it as well.
Oh,
But
yes, absolutely.
you know what I mean? Because strong is strong, right? I mean, seriously, like, strong is strong. It's like, I'm gonna appreciate Ray Williams just as much as Dave Hoff. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said it perfectly. I will never say anything bad about the untested side. That's why it's still there. It's still entertaining as hell. It's fucking cool. Seeing John Colton, you're seeing Dave Hoff, you're seeing all these fucking anything from pure raw all the way up to the multiply untested. It's cool to fucking watch. That's why it's still there.
Yep. Yep. I think it's cool to be strong, right? At the end of the day, man, I think it's just cool to be strong. I mean, from powerlifting to strongman, I even dabble in arm wrestling. I'm an observer of arm wrestling. Obviously, like, Devin Larrick got everybody into arm wrestling because he's a freak. Strength is just cool, man, and I think it is making a comeback. I'm seeing a lot of people get into strength sports and strength endeavors, and I think that's just real fucking cool. But wrapping up here, man, what's one thing that you want people to know about you outside of powerlifting? If we're going to get invested in your journey here, what's one thing you want people to know?
Shit, you're putting me on the spot now. Something I want people to know about me.
Or what's something that powerlifting taught you as a person?
Yeah, dude, put me on the spot. When like you go to the grocery store, you had the list of what you need, you walk in the store, you don't fucking know. Or somebody.
Yeah, I can get kind of introspective sometimes, but for me personally, I think you are an interesting case because you have a massive raw total, you have a massive single total, but also your age. You're only 24. So the sky is the limit for you. I mean, you have endless potential doing all this nonetheless drug-free. I mean, you really do have endless potential here. And in December, you said you're going international, December 11th. So, I mean, that's something that, is just fucking crazy. I think you're going to do really well. I think that's really exciting. So I want people to engage with you. I want people to follow along on your journey. You have a criminally underrated following on Instagram. So tell people how they can follow your journey and get a hold of you. Share some of your social media here.
Yeah, Instagram is really the only place I do any social media. It's Bradon Bradon dot Gulch Gulch _. Yeah, that's my Instagram handle. And I think the one thing I want people to know about me is that I the gym will never come first for me, actually. I made that mistake a while back, and lost a lot of relationships to that. And I learned that lesson the hard way. I will always put my girlfriend, I'll always put my family, my friends, I'll put the people who support me first, because something can happen. I'm not at the gym anymore. Or I could really get hurt. Will I go to the gym and do something else? Sure. But who's going to help me get there? And so while it looks like, yeah, I'm big and strong, I've been doing all this athletic shit for fucking damn near a decade now. Rah, I'm fucking strong. I will never put that first though, because that's not who I am. I feel like the person I am is because of the people who supported me to get to this point.
Yeah, and that's some very mature introspection because, the physical deterioration can happen overnight. It can happen quick, and the people that are there for you that got you there in the first place or will be there, no matter how strong you are, it doesn't matter the numbers, they're going to be there. That's what matters. The people matter, right? The relationships, all
Absolutely.
that matters so much more.